What's up, guys? Welcome back to the R&D garage here at Vintage Air. Today we're going to be working on the evaporator installation on our 1977 Ford F-150. So let's get some tools and get after it. All right, so your first steps are going to be, we're going to go ahead and take off our fan shroud and our coolant fan. This will give us area to work. Next, we're going to move into taking off our AC hoses, and then we're going to move back to getting off our old compressor and our old bracket. All right, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go ahead and loosen up all our adjustments on our power steering pump and our alternator so we can loosen up our belts, and we're gonna actually pull those belts off and get them out of our way. Then we're gonna come down here and take off our water pump pulley, and that'll gain us access to the 2 bolts we need to get on the bracket for the AC compressor. Okay, now that we got the main bracket assembly off of that, there's 4 bolts underneath the compressor going in from the bottom. So we need to get those out in order to get the compressor out. Disconnect your compressor line also. All right, that's all the disassembly we have to do right now for the moment. Now we're gonna move into the passenger compartment. We're here in the passenger compartment. I'm gonna give you a breakdown of what we're gonna do. Go ahead and take off your glove box door, glove box. We're gonna remove the duct hose from your passenger side louver here. We're gonna move down underneath. Go ahead and take the kick panel cover off with the boot, and then we're gonna take off the cover. We're gonna go ahead and remove the evaporator door cover. It's gonna be 5 screws on that. You're gonna have to get in here into the glove box to remove 1 or 2, then the rest are on the bottom and the side. Separate the boot and the door cover. Cool. Let's move down to our kick panel here. I'm gonna remove the 3 bolts that it has on the side. Remove the boot to the door. Okay, now that we have all that out, there's 2 duct adapter screws and a couple of connections we have to disconnect before we get to push everything out into the engine compartment. So go ahead and do that. Just a quick tip, there's 2 bolts. One right here underneath your cigarette lighter, and then there's gonna be one right here on the inside of the dash against your kick panel. If you take these 2 bolts out, it'll allow you to flex the dashboard a little bit to help you get your duct system out. Okay, so the vehicle we're working on right now doesn't have the valve cover on it, so I'm going to show you on this vehicle. Before we get to take our evaporator housing out, we're going to have to remove this vacuum elbow from the valve cover. It will get damaged on the way we take that out. All right, now that we're back, go ahead and remove your heater hoses here, your vacuum line, and this cable. Then after that, we'll be ready to remove the evaporator housing. Okay guys, our next disassembly step is going to be taking off our bezel, our knobs here, our radio, and getting our control panel out. So get some tools and follow along. All right guys, we're going to go ahead and remove these knobs. I'm going to show you how to do it because if you've never done it, it might be a little tricky. I'm using a little Allen key. On our wiper and washer knob, there's a little slot. You can turn it, and you'll see this little slot. It has a little clip in there. So stick your Allen or screwdriver behind it and push in, and that'll come out. Now, on the light switch, you're actually gonna have to reach behind your dash, and on the light switch itself, there's a button. You push in on that button, then you should be able to pull out your light knob. Just like that. Okay, now when we pull out the bezel, make sure you disconnect your duct hose. And also there's a light. All you have to do is squeeze this tab in the middle, and that'll disconnect from your bezel. Cool, our next step is we're gonna go ahead and get rid of our gauge cluster. So go ahead and undo our 4 mounting screws. We're gonna disconnect our plug from the back and the speedometer cable. Now we have access to all of this. We're gonna go ahead and remove our control panel, disconnect all our connections, and we're gonna take that out. And then also right here, we're gonna disconnect our radio and get our bracket out. That'll allow us to have complete access to everything we're gonna have to do on the installation. Now that we have complete access to our dash, go ahead and remove 2 screws. This will allow us to take out our driver's side duct. From there, we're gonna go on top into our defrost ducts, which are gonna have 2 mounting screws on top. Take those out, and then we'll be able to take the whole defrost plenum out. All right, guys, so this concludes our disassembly. Go ahead and terminate your vacuum lines and your wiring, and let's move on to the installation. Okay, guys, so if you have a non-AC truck, you're not gonna have any louvers here in your dash. So I'm gonna show you how we're gonna cut out so we can put in the louvers that we provide for you. You're gonna need your template that we provide and some tools. I'm gonna use this cutoff wheel on my air grinder, and I'll show you how to do it. So what we're gonna do is, go ahead and take your template, put it in against your dash opening, center it, and I'm gonna use these clamps to hold it in place. Now, if you notice on your template, you're gonna have our arrow facing up. Go ahead and get your marker. I'm gonna go ahead and remove my template. Looks good. I'm gonna start cutting. Okay, guys, now that we've cut out our holes for our louvers, you probably notice might be a little tight. We're gonna go ahead and take a file, clean up our edges. You want this to fit really tight. You don't want it too loose, because then as you drive around, it's gonna bang around. So we don't want that. So we wanna make sure it's nice and tight. So you may have cut it perfect. If you did, good for you. If not, take a file, clean up your edges, and get this to fit in there real nice, all right? I'm done with my filing. Go ahead and, after a few checks, it should go in with no problem. There you have it. Okay, our next modification on our dash is gonna be on the trim panel. So, in your kit, you're gonna have this template. We're gonna have to modify this a little bit so we can get our new louver in there. So what you're gonna do is put your template in place, make sure it's all lined up, take a drill with a 16 drill bit, punch out those 4 holes. Once we're done with that, we're gonna flip this over. We're gonna line up our 4 holes on the template again. Take your Sharpie, go ahead and mark your hole, and then I'm gonna use a Dremel tool with a cutoff blade to go ahead and take this area out. You use whatever tool you feel comfortable with. Okay, now that we have our hole cut out, we have a little lip here we need to get rid of first before we install our louver. So go ahead and get some sandpaper, a file, a razor blade, however you feel like doing it, and take this off, and then we'll be able to install our louver. Now that we have our bezel cut out and we've installed our louver, go ahead and get your 4 number 4x1/2 screws and go ahead and install. Okay guys, we're gonna start off with removing the grommet that's here going into our passenger compartment. It's on your inner fender well. Some vehicles may not have it. If that's your case, you're gonna refer to your instructions and you're gonna use this as a template, and it's gonna tell you exactly where to drill the holes at, okay? Let's go in and pop out that grommet. Okay, now that we popped our grommet out of our inner fender, we're gonna go ahead and drill some mounting holes for our AC hose cover plate. Moving on to our next step, we're gonna go ahead and modify our inner fender well here for our AC hoses. So you're gonna need some drills and drill bits, and let's get after it. All right, first off, this is an OEM hole in your fender well. We're gonna measure 1.5 inches from the center of this hole down. I already have it marked, ready to go. We're gonna enlarge this hole to 7/8, and then we're gonna drill a 1-inch hole right here. And that's gonna be for our grommets for our hoses. Okay, moving on to our evaporator prep here. So we're gonna start by installing our evaporator brackets, our driver's side and our passenger side. We're gonna use the OEM bolts that are on your evaporator. Starting with our passenger side first. Driver's side bracket. Next, we're going to remove these caps. Be careful when you do it. There's going to be a little pressure behind it. Make sure that little rubber insert gets out of there. Make sure your heater fittings have O-rings. If they don't, there should be some in your kit, your install kit. Put a little bit of oil. Little on the threads don't hurt. Now when you go to install these, the one that has a little bit more bent, that's the one that goes on the top. This is your lower. Just snug these up by hand, just in case we have to adjust them a little bit. We're gonna try our firewall cover plate on. Make sure they're in the right spot before we tighten everything up. Okay, next, in your install kit, you're gonna have these full length 1/4-20 full length studs. Go ahead and install those into your brackets. Okay. Next, get your firewall cover plate. And this is how we're going to install it right here. And we want to make sure that these lines are centered up in our cover. Once we're good there, they look good. Go ahead and remove your cover. And tighten up your lines. Now as you're tightening, make sure you don't change the angles. Okay. Now we're gonna get this guy out of the way. We're gonna go ahead and grab our dash bracket and 2 number 8 U-nuts. Go ahead and install these onto the bottom part of the bracket. Like so. Moving into our firewall cover installation. Well, first we got to do a couple of things before we install. So we're going to start by installing 5 of our 1/4-20 by 3/4 inch bolts with some keepers. I've done a couple right here. I'll show you how to do one. Just like that. Then we're going to install 2 large grommets. Just like that. Now before you say anything, yes, I know your firewall cover came in black. We got this nice fancy silver one, but the customer had this powder coated for his vehicle. So next, we're gonna go ahead and put some sealant around this mating surface to seal up real nice against the firewall. All right, don't get any on your fingers, and let's go ahead and move to the truck. Okay guys, before I get ready to install this, we're gonna go inside after I do put this on the firewall, and we're gonna go ahead and tighten it up with 1/4 stall washer nuts, and make sure you use your washers. Also, you're probably gonna say, hey, how is this gonna stay on while you run inside and start tightening it up? So I got a piece of foam, and I'm gonna put this in between the valve cover and this plate to kind of hold it in place as I go in there and tighten everything up. Okay, so before I go and tighten up all my hardware on the cover plate, I'm gonna take a Phillips head screwdriver and just go ahead and make sure my mounting holes for the evaporator are clear and lined up before we tighten everything up. Okay, now that we've tightened all our bolts to our firewall cover, we're gonna go ahead and insulate our firewall. So anything around the area where your evaporator is gonna go is where you're gonna need some insulation. So go ahead and grab some. If you don't have some, contact our sales guys, they'll hook you up. Moving on to our defrost duct installation. First off, two number 8 U-nuts. Gonna go ahead and install my driver's side one. That one's going inside bracket on the left. Okay. Passenger side. On the right. Then we move to the truck. Go ahead and use your number 8 by 1 inch screws in the OEM defrost duct hole to install your defrost duct. Okay, now that you got your passenger side in, go ahead and do the driver's side. Okay, we're moving on to our louver hose adapter installation. First, we're gonna have to install our S-clips onto our adapters. So the two smaller ones, they're gonna get them on the sides, like so. The main one for your center is gonna get 2 in the middle, and it's gonna be on top and bottom. Just like that. Let's move to the truck and install. Okay, now we have our other 2 hose adapters installed in the vehicle. We're gonna go ahead and install our last one on the factory bezel, just like that. All right, moving on to our AC hose installation. First off, we're gonna start with our number 10. Remove your cap. After we do this, anytime you get a chance and you have one of these open, we're gonna always wanna put the cap back on, so no contaminants get into the system. Remove the mounting hardware. It's got a little gasket on there. make sure it stays. Then we're gonna install it on the top hole in your inner fender, and the hose is gonna wrap around and come back toward the car, toward the inside of the vehicle. All right guys, so next we're gonna go ahead and install our grommet for our number 6 AC hose, and we're gonna insert the straight fitting through and into our engine compartment. Okay, before I install my number 6 AC hose, you can use soapy water. It'll help you get through the grommet a little easier there. So just make sure you keep the caps on. You don't want anything getting inside the hose. Okay, our next step, just take a look at your number 6 hose right here and make sure it's gonna be able to reach your dryer. That's where the length we need, right about there. We're gonna go into the inner fender well and install 2 8/0 clamps with a number 10 by half sheet metal screw. I got my drill. I'm gonna pre-drill a hole. I'm gonna put these on, see more or less where it's gonna be, pre-drill my hole, and then go ahead and install. Next, we're gonna install our fender well AC hose bracket with a 5/16 nut on an OEM bolt coming through into the inner fender. We're gonna route our hoses in through the channel and over to our kick panel. Okay guys, we're gonna continue to route the hoses through the channel on the inner fender. We're gonna put in another bracket with a 1/4 and a start washer nut. Our next step is gonna be installing our AC hose cover plate with the rubber boot, 2 number 10 by half sheet metal screws. So all you're gonna need is a nut driver here and some soapy water. Make it nice and easy for you to slide everything inside into the passenger compartment, okay? Moving into the interior, we're gonna go ahead and install our kick panel cover onto our kick panel. But first, you gotta install 2 large grommets. So make sure your orientation on the kick panel cover is correct. Go ahead and install your grommets. Ready to go. Now that we're getting ready to install our kick panel plate, go ahead and run your number 6 AC line on the grommet closer to the firewall, and the number 10 to the outside. Then we're gonna go in with silicone. You can either silicone your plate or you can silicone the kick panel itself. Okay, now that we have our kick panel installed, we're gonna move back to the inner fender and we're gonna secure our AC hoses to our inner fender brackets with 3 tie wraps. So moving into our evaporator installation. First things first, we got to do a couple of things. There's a bolt on the bracket underneath your dash here in the center part of it. And then there's a bolt holding your dash to the kick panel side. Also, we need to remove. Yours may have the bracket, may not. Make sure you get both bolts out. Okay, now that we got our bolts out, we're gonna have to kind of create a tool to help us install our evaporator. So what we're gonna do is, you're gonna pull back here on your dash, give yourself a little space, and measure from the firewall to the inside part of this. And you're gonna wanna cut a board probably anywhere from 12 inches to 13.5 inches. And this is gonna provide us some space while we're installing our evaporator. Now, if you haven't done so already, pull back on the dash. Go ahead and throw that board in between the firewall and your dash. Grab your evaporator. We're gonna bring it here onto the floor. Some more things you're gonna need: dash bracket and your oil for your O-rings. Okay, so go ahead and get those ready and we'll start. Okay guys, now we got our evaporator here on the floorboard. We're gonna go ahead and connect our number 6 AC hose to our expansion valve. You make sure you lubricate your number 6 O-ring on the hose. Remove the cap from the expansion valve and make sure the rubber inserts out also. And then after that, we'll lift the unit into place. Okay, I just want to give you guys a quick tip. Before you connect your number 6 hose, I'm using a foam block to prop up our unit here because without it, it's going to kind of fumble around. You're going to get upset. Just get something to kind of prop it up. Once we tighten our number 6 line, we're gonna go ahead and take the caps off our heater hoses here and put it into the dash with our lining up our brackets into the firewall cover plate. Once we do that, remove the support board. We're gonna put in our dash bracket with the 2 bolts, the 1/4 bolts that are on the unit, and replace our 2 dash mounting bolts. Then go on outside and make sure you cover up your heater hoses again. Moving on to our next step, you're gonna go ahead and grab your template here. This is gonna go against the unit. Make sure you have it correctly placed against it. It's gonna go under the dash against the unit. You're gonna mark the 2 holes. I'm gonna use an 11/64 drill bit, punch through the dash, then we're gonna go ahead and get some mounting hardware and put it in. Now that we have our 2 mounting holes drilled, go ahead and install 2 number 8x1/2 into the dash bracket units. Moving on to our next step here in the engine compartment. We're gonna go ahead and replace our full-length studs with 1/4 by 3/4 inch bolts. Just take your time, take them out one at a time, replace them one at a time. Do not tighten them up right away. We're gonna go inside and level the unit after that, and then we'll come back and make sure we tighten everything up. Moving on to our evaporator leveling. We're gonna level front to back, left to right. Just go ahead and use the base of your evaporator. Make sure it's all level. Then we're gonna go back in and we're gonna tighten all our mounting hardware on all our brackets, dash bracket and firewall cover. Moving into our wiring part of our install here, go ahead and get your wiring kit out. Go ahead and break everything open. You're gonna separate your main harness here from your heater control valve harness, and you're gonna want your 3/8 grommet. So first off, what we're gonna do is, from the main harness, we're gonna take apart the circuit breaker. We're gonna take these two lines off, and then just put this power lead off to the side. Next, go ahead and I'm gonna use a quarter. We're gonna enlarge this 1/4" drill bit on your drill. Go ahead and make this larger. Then, we're gonna go with our 3/8 grommet. Go ahead and install our heater control valve plug through it. Then we'll move to the vehicle. Next, we're gonna go ahead and install our 3/8 grommet and our heater control valve plug through our firewall cover into the engine compartment. Then after that, we're gonna go ahead and route our red, white, and blue wires from our main harness through the same grommet into the engine compartment. Now, what I do is, I'll throw a little bit of electrical tape and kind of bunch them all together, so you're not sitting there trying to pull each individual wire through. It makes it easier, so just a tip. Okay, now that we have our wires running into the engine compartment, we're gonna come back in here. On your heater control valve wiring, you're gonna have a white wire with an eyelet. We're gonna go ahead and ground that to the vehicle's chassis here. Then, we're gonna mount our main wiring harness relay. I'm gonna go ahead and use one of the bolts that are keeping on the kick panel cover plate. And then we're gonna connect our heater control valve harness to the main harness and the fan motor to our main harness. Time to mount our circuit breaker. So what I did before we mount this, went ahead and routed our wires along with the OEM wiring here on the fender well. Now I'm making sure my eyelets can reach, and I picked out a spot for my circuit breaker. I'm gonna go ahead and mark and drill and install it with 2 sheet metal screws. Okay, now that we have our circuit breaker installed, go ahead and reconnect your 2 eyelets. Okay, as far as our next wiring steps, we're gonna connect the main harness plug to the ECU, and you're gonna run your violet wire over to your fuse box and connect to a 12-volt positive key-on power source. Your tan wire is gonna go to your dash back lighting. That's gonna be for your control panel. Next, we're gonna work with our ground wires. You're gonna take your negative terminal for your battery, and we're gonna make sure that we have enough wire to attach to the negative cable. Then we're gonna go ahead and cut strip it and install our eyelet. And install it onto your negative cable. Moving on to our AC hose installation. We're gonna go ahead and connect our number 10 AC hose, lubricate your O-ring, remove the cap on your number 10 line here off the evaporator. Make sure you remove the rubber insert as well. I'm gonna drop a little oil on the threads and go ahead and connect your line. Okay, now that you have your number 10 installed, go ahead and wrap all the metal portion of it with press tape. Continuing with our AC hose installation, we're gonna go ahead and connect our number 6 AC line to our dryer, our number 10 AC hose from the compressor to our bulkhead fitting here on the inner fender, our number 8 AC hose from the compressor to the condenser. Okay, now that we have all our AC hose routed, go ahead and use a backup wrench where you need to and tighten everything back up. Moving into our wiring final steps, go ahead and locate your blue wire that was in your main harness going to the safety switch on your dryer. We're gonna go ahead and make sure it's long enough to reach, cut it, strip it, and crimp on our female terminal right here. Then our next step is, at the compressor, we're gonna connect the bullet terminal of our main lead here, and we're gonna route it down the number 8 and tie wrap it to the number 8 all the way down to the dryer and connect the female terminal to your safety switch. Okay guys, moving into our heater control valve installation. First off, we're gonna need some 5/8 heater hose, and we're gonna take this and go from the lower heater hardline to the water pump. Okay guys, we're gonna go ahead and install our heater control valve. What you're gonna need to do is get your 5/8 hose. Gonna cut it off about 5.5 inches or so. Go ahead and attach it to your heater control valve. Now make sure you use this arrow here, indicating that it's gonna go into the evaporator that way, okay? Then we'll go ahead and run hose to our fitting on our intake. Now at this time, you're gonna have to make sure that you have 5/8 fittings on your motor. Okay, our last step is gonna be plugging in our heater control valve into the harness. Drain hose installation time. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna go ahead and cut our drain hose here at 9 inches. Then we're gonna install our drain elbow, and the leftover portion we're gonna go ahead and install on the drain elbow also. Then we're gonna take it to the truck and install. Alrighty guys, moving into our duct hose installation. Remember, 2-inch goes for your defrost plenum to your defrost ducts, and the 2.5 go to all your dash vents. Go ahead and start installing. Moving into our control panel installation. Now, if you got an auxiliary switch or a back window switch, or if you don't have anything, our instructions for your control panel installation on that are gonna be with the control panel. So you're gonna either use your fuel tank switch sticker or your window sticker, or blank if you don't have a switch at all. Okay, and it comes with a bracket. You'll see some tie wraps, and in that it'll tell you exactly how to install that. Okay, since this guy doesn't have a switch or anything, we're just gonna go ahead and install it just the way it is. So, route your wiring through your bracket, and you're going to use your OEM hardware to install it. All right, now that we're done, let's go ahead and stick it in the truck. Cool, let's go ahead and install our assembly. Go ahead and route your wiring in through your dash and over to your ECU. Let's go ahead and connect all your radio connections, your antenna, your wiring, and we're gonna install it with the OEM hardware. Moving into our glove box installation. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna go ahead and insert our glove box, get it in a position, and then we're gonna mark all our mounting holes around that opening edge. Remove your glove box, and I'll meet you back on the table to show you how to drill it and set it up for the hardware. Cool, so we removed our glove box from the dash with all our markings. I'm gonna use the 3/16 drill bit. Go ahead and drill all the holes out. Then we're gonna install 4 number 8 U-nuts. All right, let's take it back to the truck and install it again. Okay, go ahead and install your glove box using 4 number 8 screws. Cool, now that we're done with our glove box, I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall my glove box door, all my gauges, my bezel. Make sure when you're putting the gauge bezel back on that you connect your duct hose to the driver's side louver. Okay guys, that's gonna do it for our evaporator installation on our 77 Ford truck. Remember to get your AC serviced by a certified AC technician. Once again, from Vintage Air, I'm Billy. Be cool. If you need any parts for your system, make sure you call our sales guys. They're very knowledgeable and can help you out. And if you have any problems with your installation, make sure you call our tech team.